Hey everyone, it's me Lone, hope you're doing alright, and recently over the past few weeks you would have heard a lot of talk and rumours about Fallout New Vegas 2, and how allegedly the game is in early talks for development at Microsoft. Now, in this video I'm not going to be talking about those rumours and legitimizing them or anything like that. All I'm going to be doing in this video is talking about the general idea of us getting a direct sequel to Fallout New Vegas, and how I don't believe that is the right approach for the next big Fallout game that we get. So if you enjoy this video, please like it, I would really appreciate it. Subscribe if you're new, and consider supporting me on some of my other social media platforms like Twitter, all of which are linked in the description below. So with that out of the way, let's get to the topic. So at the beginning of this video, I do feel like I need to clarify that I'm not saying here that it's a bad idea for Obsidian to make another Fallout game. At all. In fact, if you go back to my past Fallout 5 video, where I talk about the future of the Fallout franchise, I specifically say there on record that I do want Obsidian to make another Fallout game. One, because they're incredible at what they do, I think they're amazing at their craft. Two, I adored Fallout New Vegas, so I want to see more. And also three, if we didn't get that, it's going to be so many years until we see the next main Fallout game, because just of how traditionally anyways BGS has developed their games. And even with the acquisitions that they've made and also their acquisition by Microsoft, I just don't see that changing anytime soon. So yes, I do want Obsidian to make another Fallout game, absolutely. All that I'm saying in this video is that I think Fallout New Vegas 2 is a bad idea. I think that getting a direct sequel of Fallout New Vegas is not the approach that they should be taking. I think there is so much more potential in the Fallout franchise than just to be doing a sequel of New Vegas. Now, don't get me wrong, I've written arguments on both sides of the fence here because I do want to be as fair as possible, but eventually I'm going to run the point home that I do want to see a completely different game from Obsidian if they were to make another Fallout game. Now, in terms of those arguments in favor of a sequel, of course Fallout New Vegas 2, it sounds sexy, right? It sounds very appealing. So many people loved Fallout New Vegas, including myself, that to be able to get more of that, it does sound really cool. And you see it in everyone's titles, you see it in everyone's articles. Like, we don't even know if people like Microsoft, if these conversations took place, we don't even know if they used the phrase Fallout New Vegas 2, right? They could have said the next Fallout game, but if it's going to be the next Fallout game and if it's going to be Obsidian, then you just write Fallout New Vegas 2. It's very clickbaity, it's very catchy, and I'm using literally that in my title of this video, so I totally get it. And just because of the name recognition, you know, the lineage that Fallout New Vegas has, you chuck a 2 at the end of it, it's probably going to sell like hotcakes. So even from a business perspective, I totally get it, right? And we also know what the deal was when it comes to Fallout New Vegas. That game was incredible. It had amazing stories, it had amazing characters, amazing factions, all the endings and the multiple endings that you can get with that game. People really enjoyed that game, especially when it came to the writing, because it was incredible. So who wouldn't want to see more of that? I totally get it. And I'm not saying that there are unfinished storylines when it comes to Fallout New Vegas necessarily. I'm saying that there's so much more potential. There are loose ends that can be tied. A lot of those characters can come back. A lot of the factions can come back and be progressed in a direct sequel. So I totally understand that, and I totally get the appeal, especially from hardcore New Vegas fans. I totally get the appeal of that. Secondly as well, like, if you look at the world of Fallout New Vegas, the setting, the Mojave Wasteland, let's be honest with ourselves. Like, I adored the game, and I'm sure many of you adored the game, but one downside, in my opinion anyways, was that for the most part, the Mojave Wasteland felt a little bit barren. Sometimes it felt a little bit empty. And I'm not saying that that was Obsidian's fault. I'm saying that that's the reality when you have 18 months to develop a game. Of course, they're not going to be able to develop this massive world and fill it with all these incredible locations. They did the best with what they had, and they did an incredible job, like with the strip and other locations like Novac and stuff like that. Absolutely think they did an incredible job with the time that they had. But still, imagine if they had 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, 4 years to develop a proper Fallout New Vegas game. That Mojave Wasteland, if it wasn't necessarily more cramped in, maybe the world was bigger because they wanted to go for that more kind of barren look of the wasteland. I totally get that if that's the theme that they were going for. But if they had more time with that game, I reckon the world would have had so many more interesting things. So when you come to a Fallout New Vegas 2, that sequel just provides the potential for Obsidian to sit down for 3, 4, 5, however many years, and develop the Mojave Wasteland that they always wanted to. Like, I would love to see all the things that were left on the cutting room floor. I would love to see, especially after the events of Fallout New Vegas, I would love to see the New Vegas Strip and the Mojave Wasteland develop much more. Let's say it's set 5 or 10, however many years after those events. I think it would be incredible, of course, absolutely, to see what the Mojave Wasteland looks like after that. So that does have some appeal as well. And then third, like, I know a lot of players, including myself, wanted to be able to keep playing Fallout New Vegas after the main story ended. And don't get me wrong, that was a legitimate grievance that I had with Fallout 3 as well, before the DLC, before it allowed you to actually play past the main story. I had, those feelings when it came to both Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. So I can understand why some people were upset that, the main story's ended. I'm going to have to reload an old save and keep playing the game, or maybe start a new one. Like, I just want to be able to play beyond the main story and see how actually the Mojave Wasteland has been affected by my actions and my choices throughout the game. That's an incredible appeal. But to be able to get that, you need development time. You can't do that in 18 months, especially with how many branching endings and storylines that Obsidian had when it came to Fallout New Vegas. There was no way that they would be able to properly account for that if they let you play past the main story and showed you what the Mojave Wasteland was like. See what people were actually saying to you, how they reacted to your actions, if there were any other storylines that could be developed after that point. How many years would they need to actually do that properly? They need more than 18 months. So I'm not saying that it's Obsidian's fault. I'm saying that, yes, it was just unfortunate we couldn't play after the main story ended. So this is where a sequel can come in. This is where New Vegas 2 can come in. It can act as that, way of us playing past the end of Fallout New Vegas. Now, that does create some complications when it comes to the multiple endings of Fallout New Vegas, but still, I believe that those are 3 strong arguments for us getting a Fallout New Vegas 2. And if we were to get Fallout New Vegas 2, as well as I do, we're all going to put hundreds of hours into it. We're probably going to love it, right? And it's going to be everything Fallout fans ever wanted. Totally get that, but I still do believe that it's not the right approach. I still do believe that we should be getting something different and something, that's not just a direct sequel to New Vegas. So here are 3 arguments for that. Number 1, I think the beauty, touching on the multiple endings of Fallout New Vegas, was the fact that it had so many different endings. Like, you look at Fallout 3, and I've said multiple times, Fallout 3, my favorite game of all time, but the story was pretty simple. You had some, deviations in the end, depending upon what you did with the FEV and all that kind of stuff, but it was nowhere near to what New Vegas had, with all the factions that you could align with, where you wanted to be independent, whether you wanted to side with Caesar's Legion or the NCR. Like, there were so many branching storylines, and that was just the main story. All the other stuff that happened as well, all the other characters and companions and whatever it is, depending upon which side quests you did and how you completed them, that game had so many different types of endings. You go into the Fallout wiki and you see how fully in depth that they are and how many branches there are. It's absolutely insane. But when you have a direct sequel, you're essentially forcing Obsidian to choose a canon ending. That is the only way to be able to develop a sequel 1, 2, 3, 4, however many years after New Vegas. If you want to develop those storylines, if you want to bring characters back, if you want to set it in the same setting as the Mojave Wasteland, you are going to have to choose what the canon endings are. And part of the magic, I believe, of Fallout New Vegas is the fact that we don't know. We don't know the canon endings of New Vegas. It is up to us for speculation and discussion. And we love that. We love talking about the endings of Fallout New Vegas. So if we were to have a New Vegas 2, and have Obsidian be like, yeah, the NCR took over the control of the Mojave Wasteland. To me, that would ruin the magic a little bit. To me, that would ruin the intrigue of what happened at the end of New Vegas. And even BGS understood that. BGS and Fallout 4 had a reference to New Vegas, but they didn't actually say what happened, because they also knew that we're talking about it, we're debating it. We love to see how the Mojave Wasteland reacts and what kind of endings that we get on multiple playthroughs, depending upon how we play and the choices that we make. So when you get a direct sequel, you kind of undermine that a little bit. And just because of that reason, I don't necessarily want to see a sequel. But also the second reason, there are so many different locations in the Fallout universe, come on, that we want to see. Like, I get the appeal of going back to the Mojave Wasteland, for that reason that I said, to see it more built up, to see it more fleshed out. But we've also kind of been there and done that, you know what I mean? Like, we've spent so many hours in the Mojave Wasteland. I just want to see some other cities, some other locations in the Fallout universe. I want to see what happened to these other locales. Like, for instance, New Orleans, Louisiana, maybe even Fallout New York. And I know that there is some lore that says New York was destroyed, but that was potentially retconned. I still want to see what happens in these other locations. And I honestly think we, or even Microsoft, are cheating themselves if they say, hey, Obsidian, don't make a Fallout game in a brand new location. Like, could you imagine all the possibilities if Obsidian had the free reign to make a Fallout game in a brand new city, in a brand new state? It would be absolutely incredible. Why are we wanting them to tie themselves down to the same location that they've already developed a game in the form of New Vegas and the Mojave Wasteland? Like, I just want to see something different. I think it would be really cool to see what Obsidian does with a brand new location in the Fallout universe. All that's going to do as well is develop the lore of Fallout further in a different location. Like, how many discussions do we all have about what about this city? What happened to that city? What happened in this location? There's so many undeveloped stories. There's so much untold lore when it comes to the Fallout franchise that I want to see it progress further. I want to see it written further. And who better to do that than Obsidian? So yes, please, Obsidian, do a Fallout game, but with a brand new location. That would be amazing. And on that note, when it comes to the third point, Fallout 3 was set in the year 2277. Fallout New Vegas was set in the year 2281. And Fallout 4 was set in the year 2287. Of course, there's a little bit of a trend here. Like, Fallout games typically are set one after the other, and they're not set so far in the future, so some storylines, some things can kind of progress from one game to another. Totally get it. Fallout 76, kind of bucked that trend a little bit by it being set a little bit earlier. But with those mainline Fallout games, we see how they've been set and how closely they've been set in terms of the timeline with each other. I want to see a Fallout game set in the future. Not like, I'm not talking about 500 years, 1,000 years in the future. No, I'm talking about 30, 40, 50 years, maybe even 100 years after the events of these games that we've been playing for so many years. I love the Brotherhood of Steel. I love the NCR. I love Super Mutants. I love all the enemies and all the characters and all the factions that we've seen in past Fallout games. But I said in that past Fallout 5 video that I want to see something different. I want to see something a little bit new and something a little bit fresh. And I think, honestly, the way to go about that, if we truly want to kind of break free from all these things that we've experienced again and again and again, is for the game, or for the next Fallout game, to be set somewhere 50 years in the future, 100 years in the future. Not so much where things have seriously developed so it doesn't feel like a post-apocalyptic wasteland, but just far enough that we're not hearing about the Brotherhood of Steel over and over again. And I love the Brotherhood of Steel. Don't want to hear from them again. I love the NCR, but we've now seen them in multiple Fallout games now. So I want to see some fresh faces, some new locations, a new setting, a new time, just to see what Fallout can be like in that setting. And just to let Obsidian, again, kind of spread their wings a little bit and deal with a new time, deal with the new factions and new storylines and new characters. I still, of course, want it to feel like Fallout. I still want it to feel, Americana, 1940s, 50s, all that stuff. You totally get me. But I just want it to be a little bit further away from all the other games that we've seen for the past 10, 15, however many years. Just so it's a little bit different, but still feels like Fallout that allows Obsidian to really take it by the fucking neck and just make this awesome Fallout game the way that they want to. I think that is the much better approach than just saying Fallout New Vegas 2. So those are my arguments. I got a little bit heated there. Of course, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourselves, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.